Okay, welcome to the introductory series video for the series I'm calling Imminent Fluency, the Spanish edition. I'll probably produce another series called Imminent Fluency, the English edition for Spanish speakers. So this is going to introduce basically the method that I'm calling Imminent Fluency, kind of its purpose, how we're going to go about it, and a little bit of personal stuff about me, just because I like to talk about myself. Okay, so imminent fluency. The idea is to become conversational in the language, first and foremost. Um, so think of it like if you're a Spanish learner and you've learned hola, you've learned cómo estás, you've learned the most common response as bien, gracias, or muy bien, gracias. Maybe you understand cómo te llamas and you say like, me llamo Tomás, me llamo Susana. And you know roughly that and maybe like a handful of other things, but that's it. Right? You're not conversational, right? These are like greetings. Uh and and let's say you buy a travel book from like Berlitz travel books or like Tuttle travel books or like there's other companies, but you might memorize a few words from the different sections, from like the food section, from the travel section, from the people section, from the body part section. Okay. And you might even remember a couple of phrases or a few phrases, maybe say a dozen phrases, maybe even 2 dozen phrases. You are not conversational. You're not conversational. And then as soon as anybody like wanders off that path, like you don't understand what they're saying. And even when they say something you have studied, they're saying it too fast for you to understand. Right. So, okay. So you're not conversational. So the goal, if you studied foreign languages for a while, or if you've taken high school Spanish, high school French, you forgot almost everything. You've bought a Udemy course, you've taken tutoring on like italki or Preply, you have you have done Duolingo, you've done Memorize, you've bought Pimsleur, you've bought Asimil, you've bought Teach Yourself books. You're still not conversational, right? Most of us are still not conversational. I'm including myself. I'm not trying to pretend I'm like any different here. I'm probably one of the worst cases of starting a language, learning the greetings, and then dropping the language 1 month later and forgetting almost everything I learned and then going back and doing it all over again, just spending more money and more time. Okay, so it's not a novel idea, and I'm not claiming it, but my approach is going to be the way we all learn hola, ¿cómo estás? Because it's common. It's like the first things you learn because it's the first thing people say to you. So anytime we study, anytime we pick up a book, it's almost going to be chapter 1 stuff or chapter 2 stuff. And every time we watch a video on beginning Spanish, that's what's covered. So we see it so much over and over again until we have hola, buenos días, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Tomás. We need to do this same process, this same repetition, right? For the other phrases, for how old are you? For what did you do yesterday? For where are you from? For do you have any siblings? For I'm hungry, it's hot today. Can I have your phone number? Right? For these other expressions, we need to repeat them over and over again. So I'm kind of like, I'm part of this method is high repetition, high repetition. Um, that's kind of old fashioned now in pedagogical circles, but for me, it worked for a lot of people. And other things that aren't working for me, like the apps aren't working for me, and these other methods aren't working for me. Immersion doesn't work for me, right? I just like I'm listening to like Japanese dramas in Japanese. I'm catching maybe like Ohio and Watashi wa and Arigato, but beyond that, like I'm not catching anything new because I don't know anything. Like so, to me, that's obviously not comprehensible input. Comprehensible input you want to get to the stage where you can like implement comprehensible input, where you're catching the majority of the things said, like you're understanding, and there's like a small percentage, I don't know, and that's the percentage that you don't understand and that you're going to strive to learn. But when the ratio is switched, when it's only a tiny things that you understand and the majority you don't understand, that's disincented. That disincentivizes you, right? It kind of like demoralizes you. Sometimes it defeats you. You're like, I'm never going to learn this language. This is too much. I'm not getting anything out of this. and you for the most part you aren't. Okay, so to get to a comprehensible input, so get to the point where you can use comprehensible input at its most effective, I think you want to be conversational. Then you can watch movies, then you can listen to songs, then you can start to talk to people, and you pick up a few words here, your pronunciation improves, and things like that. You can always use comprehensible input, but at the beginning stages, I think it's just going to be less effective, and it's going to be more motivating if you employ it at a conversational level. So how to get to the conversational level? This is what this whole thing is about. Imminent fluency is basically going over 500 common expressions, and those expressions can be a phrase or a statement or a question or even just a single word. And those 500 expressions will be comprised of roughly 15 to 1800 vocabulary words. So you will have your lexicon, your personal lexicon that you understand when you hear, not just the words you study. Like, it doesn't matter if you studied the words, because then when you go to a country and they speak really fast to you, you can't discriminate the sounds, and so like somebody could say something, a word you've studied, but you don't recognize it when it's spoken to you. So what's the purpose? Like, the same effect as not knowing, the definition, right? You can't use the language. So our goal is to use the language. It's to use the language just like you use buenos dias, just like you use muy bien, just like you use me llamo Tomás, with those other expressions. You hear them, you understand them, and you have a ready response. That's the goal. Okay, and so we're going to do it through a lot of input, a lot of listening input, a lot of auditory input, and a lot of shadowing. You're going to shadow, right? This is repetition. Repetition is very useful, very helpful in language learning. And to the extent that some things are going to be easier to understand when we break them down, like when we break down the grammar, or I give you some etymology, or I give you some English cognates, or we just have some kind of mnemonic device that allows you to remember. That's when we're going to employ these things. And so we're not learning grammar to learn grammar per se. That I feel like you should reserve to you until you are imminently fluent, and then pick up a grammar book, and you're going to see how easy the grammar is, and you're going to see how much you get out of that grammar book. But if you pick up a grammar book now and thinking you're going to become conversational, like, good luck. I love grammar. I'm good at grammar. I can learn the grammar of almost any language on my own, and I have learned a lot of grammar, but like, I still can't speak those languages. I'm not even like I'm not even conversational on a basic level, because the grammar doesn't do it for me. It's not enough. Okay, so this series, this Imminency Fluency series, I basically divided in half. The first 250 expressions, which is going to consist of roughly like maybe 20 to 25 videos, because I chop up those 250 expressions into like bite-sized portions. Like one video or one lesson will be like 10 to 15 words, and then so on until we finish the 250. And then I'll make another list in the other half. Okay, now this is just like my pedagogical theory, my foreign language learning experiment, but I'm employing it on myself. I am fortunate enough to be able to pay for tutors, and I find the cheapest ones I can find on Italki and on Preply. And by the way, if you don't want to pay for tutors, if you can't afford tutors, there's a series of books, like this series of books, and it's basically the same thing. It's sentences in the target language and in English, and then there's recordings you can listen to, and you just play them back. For me, I hire cute Japanese girl, cute Kazakh girl, or young women, and we talk, and they have personalities, and they tell me things, and I can ask them questions. So for me, because I can afford it, I do that. It's a slightly better method, right? You're more engaged. If you like this person, and I like my tutors, like, I'm looking forward to talking to them. I'm looking forward to seeing them. Yeah, whatever, however creepy you think that sounds, it's incentive, right? So like, yeah, if the tutoring part you can't, I would recommend like this book, this series. They have other languages, but maybe they don't have the language you want to study, and I don't know if they have them in your native language, but like, I just checked for English. Okay, All right. So for me personally, like I said, I am employing this series with my tutors. I generated a list and I said, let's cover this for lesson one. Let's cover this for lesson two. And then my job is to like get the pronunciation ingrained and then practice that pronunciation so I'm not reading it wrong, understanding like mispronouncing things, and that's stuck in my head. And then I review for homework. And then when we, the next lesson we review, make sure that I know that stuff like that. And maybe I don't know 100%, but 90%. And then we move on to the next lesson and we do the same thing. And if any time I feel like I'm gonna get like I'm starting to like get backlogged, I'm starting to like not know a lot of the stuff, then we review. Okay, I haven't really gone in. I'm like 3 weeks into Japanese. I'm like a week and a half into Kazakh. So I'm not ready to like pronounce this method as like it's a good method or not. Like, but so I'm my own guinea pig, and the Spanish videos I am producing. By the way, I am producing a series is going to be you guys are going to be my guinea pigs, the ones who actually take on the series. Okay, so right for me, I am a native English speaker. Um, my first language is actually Spanish. I grew up in Peru. I was born in Peru, grew up in Peru till the age of 6. So I spoke Spanish natively until the age of 6. Somewhere between 6 and 7, I started speaking English. As any child does, you speak it like a native and you learn it like a native. I didn't learn it as a second language the way we learn foreign languages now. And yeah, so but my Spanish is no longer native. And like if you're a native Spanish speaker, you will hear that it's not native, but it's still very, very good. And if you, as a Spanish learner, could speak to my level or can achieve my level of pronunciation, like you would be ecstatic. Like literally, you would pop some E, go to a rave, get yourself raped, and be happy, right? Like I see a lot of students like not in my case, but like they don't want to learn from people who are not PhDs or native speakers or just like not like authorities, complete authorities in their field, right? They don't have certificates. They don't like you're you can gain a lot from people who have less than the best of certificates or degrees or right. So yeah, I feel like if I have a lot to offer you as a Spanish speaker, if you can speak like I can speak, I think mission accomplished for you. Right. Okay. And it's free. So what the hell are you complaining about? Okay, so right now I am studying, as I said, I'm studying Japanese and Kazakh, and I will show you the lists that I have for that I generated. They're roughly 90% matching, but because of cultural differences. Some things you say in Japanese you wouldn't say in Kazakh. Some things you say in Kazakh you wouldn't say in Spanish, and some things in Spanish you wouldn't say in English. So we make slight modifications. I've made slight modifications. Okay, now as the goal is to be conversational, like I said, I am shunning reading other than what you need to read to repeat the words and to study the words. Like I'm shunning conversations. Like a lot of people and even polyglots recommend get into conversations as early as possible. I am saying no. My method is not doing that. No writing, and no very little grammar. And the only grammar we use again is just as a mnemonic device to help you remember the vocabulary. Okay. And in some cases, no native alphabet. Like for me, I am not learning kanji, F kanji. I can learn katakana if I wanted to in a day. It's not difficult. I don't know why you people are buying books that take you like a month to go through to learn hiragana. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Get a hiragana chart, start printing out the words and start reviewing them like 5 at a time, like all the vowels, a, e, or a, e, u, e, o, then ka, ki, ku, ke, go and write them out. And like I swear, if you gave yourself like 2 days to do it, you would have 90% of them memorized, then practice reading, and then the other 10, you will fill in the other 10 after you make mistakes a few times. That's it. Like if it shouldn't take you more than a week to be literate with hiragana, and then the same thing with katakana. Like you really don't need to be spending like you don't need to buy a course for this. You guys are like, yeah, I forget what that's called. There's a certain psychological theory. I forget what the name of it is. I want to say it's not Parkinson's. I know that's a disease, but anyway, the idea is that you will use as much time to accomplish something as you allot yourself. So if like let's say you have to write a report, if you have 1 month to write it, guess how long you're going to take to write it? 1 month. But if you had you had to do the same report and you only had a week, guess how long you would take to write it? 1 week. And the difference in quality between the 1 week report and the 1 month report is negligible, right? So we use as much time as we allot ourselves to use. So I highly recommend that don't give yourself as much time. Just give yourself less time, because most of the time you can accomplish exactly what you need to accomplish in much less time. And this applies to hiragana, katakana for those of you. Now, kanji is a monster. That's why I'm not learning I'm not going to be literate in Japanese. Not because kanji is impossible to learn, but because my goal is to be conversational. And if I study kanji in the beginning, that's just going to slow me down way too much, and it's going to discourage me, and it might even defeat me where I just give up on Japanese. So to avoid that, and I know myself, I am easily defeated in this way. I'm avoiding kanji, and you might do that for a language that has Arabic script. You might like I can't read Arabic. By the way, Arabic is not hard to learn how to read. Same thing with Russian, same thing with Greek, same thing with even Tamil. And I haven't learned how to read Hindi, and I haven't learned how to read Thai, but I'm assuming it's the same thing. It's just the funny squiggly lines that you don't associate with any sounds, but it just takes time to make that association, right? And it's only like you can the alphabet might be like 22, 25 letters, or it might be like 60 syllables, but it's usually nothing more than that. And that's just like, it doesn't take that long to learn. So I've learned how to read Arabic before. I've learned how to read Arabic before. I've learned how to read Greek. I've learned how to read Yiddish. I've learned how to read Tamil. I've learned how to read Russian, right? So the alphabets are no problem. Trust me, alphabets are no problem. Vocabulary is the bear, right? Vocabulary is the monster. But yeah, but now, so Chinese characters, hell no. Kanji, hell no. Okay, so but that's up to you. So if your language, your target language uses Arabic script or some other script, you might just use like a Romaji version, right? A Latinized version of the language, to spell out the sounds, and then just rehearse that way. But for my advice is, if your target language uses Arabic or Cyrillic, like learn the Arabic and Cyrillic. It's not hard. It's not hard. Yeah, you have to go through the growing pains of reading slowly and like figuring out and connecting, but it doesn't take that long. Trust me. Okay, next. Okay, so back to me, because I like to talk about myself. And this is all kind of like wishful thinking. Like, I failed at learning many languages. I've attempted more languages than like I care to admit to. And I'm nowhere near beyond the greeting stages in any language. So this is why I'm like, no, and plus I tutor Spanish. And I've tutored Spanish the traditional way, like, but I'm trying to learn new methods because I want to offer my students a better method, right? I want to be more effective. And so after I get to a conversational level in Kazakh, so after I learn these 500 words and practice them and hear them a lot, or 500 expressions, 15 to 1800 words, after I get to a conversational level in Japanese, I am going to go after Czech. I'm going to go for the Czech language, which thank goodness uses the Latin alphabet. So it's really fast for me to be like a pretty proficient reader of Czech, even though my pronunciation will be kind of garbage, as it is for Kazakh, as it is for Japanese, for different reasons. Japanese because of the like intonation stuff, and Kazakh because of the sounds, the vowel sounds. I have a hard time. And Czech, basically because of their stupid little R with the circumflex, like Dvorak, Dobrze. Yeah, that's a little hard to say in some. That little R in certain places is hard to say in the word for me. Okay, but I think that's probably like common. Okay, let's say I do learn Czech. Let's say I get conversational Czech. That's 5 languages now. So that would be English, Spanish, Japanese, Kazakh, and Czech, which sounds like a pipe dream, but okay, well, let's pretend. Then I have these other 8 languages which I'm considering. There are more. I could list a whole bunch more that I would love. Like in an ideal world, I would speak like 15 to 20 languages fluently, right? And then why not more if it's an ideal world? But I'm saying here, so like Albanian, I have an interest in Albanian. Small country, unique language. It's Indo-European, but it's its own branch in the Indo-European tree, and I like the sound of it. And for all these languages, I love the people, I love the culture, I love the countryside or the country, the food, the women are gorgeous, right? So yeah, and the guys are usually like hardy and cool, like just cool people. Bulgarian, same idea, same idea. Bulgarian, Slavic language, and yeah, it's probably the easiest Slavic language to learn. Bulgarian as an English speaker, it's probably the easiest Slavic language to tackle. Croatian, Croatian is a Slavic language, also Slavic language. Uses the Latin alphabet, so good for me. About 80 million. I'll get into the details about 80 million speakers, so a very useful language. Russian, I think it's something like 250 million speakers, but not only 250 million speakers, you get to talk to Russians, great, guys are cool, women are gorgeous. Kazakhs, women are gorgeous, guys are cool. Kyrgyz, women are gorgeous, guys are cool. And other Stan countries, right? Tajikistan, is that a country? Maybe Uzbekistan, right? So yeah, so you get to talk to people in those countries because Russian is still usually the predominant language in those countries. But their native languages are making a resurgence. Swahili. I like the sound of Swahili. It has that vowel harmony. It has that consonant harmony. But it's agglutinative, meaning you're adding meanings to the ending of nouns and verbs, and they pile up, kind of like how you play dominoes and you like connect dominoes and collect dominoes, connect. That's the idea between an agglutinative language like Swahili. But Swahili really like gets into like they really like add and add and add. Even the Turkish languages like Turkish, like they're also agglutinative, but they're not as agglutinative, I think, as Swahili. Turkish people. Wait, I think Croatia. I said Croatia 80 million. Croatia's not 80 million. Croatia's like 6 million people. But with Croatian, you get the benefit of also learning Bosnian. If you learn Croatian, you're basically learning Bosnian. You're basically learning Serbian. You're basically learning Montenegrin. And so that's roughly 16 to 17 million people. By learning Croatian, you can communicate theoretically with 16, 17 million people. Turkish is 80 million people. Swahili is like 100 million people. Russian, I think was like 250 million people. Bulgarian and Albanian are like 8 or 9 million people. Urdu. Urdu is a massive language. Urdu, I feel like it's like 230 million people, but it's not just that. It's more than technically. It's going to give you more. It's going to give you like access to more people because if you learn Urdu, you're basically learning Hindi, and there's I want to say at least like close to 1 billion Hindi speakers, right? Maybe 800 million, something like that. That's just a guess, considering how many Indians there are, right? And not that they all speak Hindi, but generally, like that's the most popular language. Anyway, so if you learn Urdu, you're getting the benefit of learning Hindi for the most part. And then Uzbek. Uzbek has, I think, 30 million people. That's a lot of people because it's a small country, I think. Yeah, so Uzbek is another language. So those are the main 8. But I could throw on like Swedish. I could throw on Quechua, Scottish Gaelic, or even Doric, right? The Scots. Yeah, like there's more countries. Kyrgyz, like if I'm learning Kazakh, like I think it wouldn't be too hard to learn Kyrgyz, and Kyrgyz, like beautiful people. I don't want to make it sound like I'm learning languages just to like meet women, but like the Kyrgyz women, the Kazakh women to me are gorgeous. Not the Russians and the Bulgarians and the Croatians. They're all gorgeous. They're all beautiful. Okay, so that's it. So that's my language learning plan. Now I'm going to show you the imminent language set or the set 1 for Spanish. So I'm going to stop sharing because I don't know how to transition. So you're not going to see, you're just going to see my mug for a little bit as I try to get to the file that I need. How do I do this without botching everything out? Okay, here we go. Spanish set 1. Here it is. Let me expand it. I know you can't see it yet. You will in a second. Okay, now let's go back to my face so I can say share. Share. Okay, I'm sharing. Okay. So this set, I can scroll down and it'll get to 250 expressions. I've divided the lessons into 20 lessons. So I'll give you kind of a sample, not a full sample, because in the full sample, you'll get mnemonic tools. In here, I'm only going to give you a little because it's off the top of my head. I don't have like the full like lesson in front of me. So we want to be conversational. We want to be fluent in these expressions, not just in learning what they mean, but when you hear them, you recognize them, and then if there's an appropriate response, a common response, or a response you want to give, you know it. So hello is hola, and then you would shadow me. So hola, 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 hola. Then I'll give you a tip like Spanish vowels. Spanish Americans butcher Spanish vowels because the way we speak, we elongate our vowels. We're like hola, 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 right? Hola, I'm Dora, right? So in English, like if you're, and this works better if you're sitting down because you'll feel your body, like the movements of your body. If you just point to somebody and say, "Hey," like, "Hey, don't do that," "Hey," right? You can feel it in your stomach, right? Or maybe your diaphragm, but you can feel your stomach tensing, and sometimes your sphincter is like almost like puckering a little bit in the perfect world. So that's the sharpness and the brevity of the Spanish vowels. It's not hey, it's hey. So it's not hola, it's oh, oh. It's not so severe. I'm exaggerating just for our learning purposes, but it's oh. And same with the a. It's ah, ah. Feel your stomach tightening. Ah. So once you articulate the sound, once it's I know it's an o, cut it off. It's not oh, it's not, it's just oh, oh, it's an o. Ah, oh, it's an ah. Oh, it's an a. It's done. Cut it off. Cut your breath off. Chop it off. Now you're not gonna be able to do that for each syllable. You're not gonna be like oh la, but as you practice for the individual syllables, you'll later be able to make those same sounds just with your mouth, which is how we do it in Spanish. Hola, o, la, o, la. A little tightening in your stomach. O, la, o, hola, hola. So that's what your pronunciation. When you shadow me, like initially, you'll sound like you're saying what I'm saying, but you're not. But it takes time for your ear to start to discriminate between sounds in Spanish, and then once you can discriminate, then you have hope of mimicking, right? Like for example, take Japanese people or Chinese people who can't discriminate the R and the L in English. So a lot of the times, like I've taught Japanese students English, and then they're like, "Oh, thank you, Carlos, you were right," and they will spell it with an L, right? Or they or the word light they'll spell with an R because the whole time they've been hearing it, that's what it sounds like to them, and they've never seen it in print, let's say, because they can't distinguish the R and the L, like they're always saying this the wrong thing, or they're saying what they can say, right? And they don't even think that they need to make two different sounds for right and light, right? Right, light, right, light, right, light, right, light. If you're a Japanese speaker and you don't have any English, that's going to sound very much the same to you. Okay, so and for English Americans, we don't have such a severe problem when it comes to Spanish, but we do have it when we're trying to be perfect or we're trying to be close to native in our pronunciation. Okay, so hola. Good morning. Buenos días. Buenos días. The buenos is the good part, and the morning. Well, it's not really morning. Días means days, so we just say good day. It's good day. It's actually plural, good days, but that's what we say to say good morning, right? Okay. Buenos días. Buenos días. Buenos días. And then I'd like to help you. I could give you some like grammar tips. Like I can point out that the buenos ends with an os because it's a masculine plural adjective, which you need because it's modifying a masculine plural noun, días. And usually Spanish nouns that end with a, día in the singular, are feminine. So this is an exception to the general rule, and días is masculine. That's why it's el día, the day, not la día. La día would be the day if it were feminine, but it's not feminine. Okay, so buenos días. And then you would shadow me. Then I would go buenos dias, and you would shadow me. And then I'll go faster to like a native level, like buenos dias, buenos dias. And you're like, oh, I caught that. I caught that. He's just saying buenos dias. That's easy when you're going from buenos dias to buenos dias to buenos dias to buenos dias. Because it's the same word. You don't like, I could have just said blah, 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 buenos dias. And then you're like, oh, okay, it's buenos dias, it's good morning. But then later when I mix them up and I say like, buenas noches, and then buenos días, y cómo estás, y buenas tardes, you're catching it. You're still catching the buenas tardes. You're still catching the buenos días. You're still catching the buenas noches. But that takes time. That takes time, right? And so repetition is going to help. Get this out of my screen. Okay, so that's the part of the imminent fluency method. A lot of repetition, a lot of auditory input, a lot of shadowing, and a lot of variation in speed from slowly so you can hear the sounds, so you can distinguish the sounds, so you can mimic the sounds to more and more native level, and then even like hyper native level, like a what's it called? Ludicrous speed, right? So normal slow level, if I were teaching you Spanish and you were like a low beginning level, I would say buenos dias, and you're like, oh, I caught that. He's saying good morning to me. So you just say buenos, you'll probably say buenos dias. And I'm like, you idiot. No, I wouldn't say that. And then I'll, as we progress, as you get more familiar with buenos dias, I'll just start to say buenos dias. Buenos dias. Right. And even in Spanish speakers are notoriously spaz speakers. They're like, buenos dias. Buenos dias. And you're like, what? Buenos dias. What? Buenos dias. Oh, okay. But you'll get to the where you can like hear buenos dias, and then you're like, oh, he said good morning. And then I'll go even to like I said, ludicrous speed. I'll be like, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? Like nobody speaks that way. No native Spanish speaker speaks that way. That's even more like that's exaggerated. That's taking speed, like that's actual taking speed. Like, and then buenos dias, what are you doing? Like you're like a cokehead. Like anyway, but if you can pick up the buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te llamas? Like that speed, the native speed is not going to be as big of a problem. So it's all about, it's all about getting your ears used to these sounds. You have to discriminate sounds, discriminate syllables, and then attach meaning. Like it makes no sense to start learning vocabulary. You learn what por supuesto means. It means of course. But in a conversation, somebody says por supuesto, and you didn't, like what? Like you didn't distinguish the por supuesto. You didn't catch it. They said it, but you can't catch it. And so who cares if you know what it means? You can't use it. Like you're still ignorant, right? So I think the purpose is to develop your ear for the language. So inundate yourself with the language, and this is one way of doing it. Getting the language over and over again. And it's not full-on immersion. I'm speaking English. I'm going to limit my English during the lessons to just here is the English word, and you can see it, and then I just say a bunch of Spanish. But when I give you mnemonics and explain certain grammar points, explain cognates, explain etymology, I'm going to speak English. Okay, some polyglots don't like this. They just want to be fully immersed in the language and like getting just the target language. That's fine. Right, but for this method, we're going to sprinkle some English. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Okay, so this is how it would go. We'd go down the line like this. And the first video lesson, I don't know how long it will be, maybe like 20 to 40 minutes. It will be these expressions. This is the longest list, by the way. The other ones are shorter. This has 18 expressions because most of it is greetings, and I'm assuming some of you will know some of them. But even if you don't, it's all very useful. It's all very thematic. And then next lesson, less thematic. I didn't do as good a job as like separating, like talking about food, talking about travel, talking about friends, talking about like, I didn't do that. I just came up with the help of ChatGPT with common expressions. Okay, so that's Spanish. That's how it would go. Let me stop sharing this, and then I'll show you what I am doing for my Japanese study, which is roughly the same list, but not exactly. As I said, different cultures, different customs will result in different things being stressed or things being said, or right, like, okay, I'll give you an example here. So here's my Japanese list. It's basically the same as the Spanish list on the left. It's basically the same English expressions, but like 90%, not exactly. And so I'm 3 weeks into Japanese. Everything you see here on this screen, I already know by heart. Hello, konnichiwa. Good morning, ohayo gozaimasu. I'm not reading this, right? I already know it. Good evening, konbanwa. Good night, oyasumi nasai. See you later, matane. Or you can say jamata. Of course, mochiron. Great, sugoi, sugoi. Yes, hi. No, ie. Maybe, tabun. You can also be tabun so desu, right? And then we keep going. There's only one that I have problem with is you're welcome. I haven't memorized you're welcome yet. How are you? O genki desu ka? And the O makes it polite. But you can take it out. You can just say genki desu ka. That's more informal. And then the response is just genki desu. Or you can throw in a polite arigato. Or you can even throw a more polite arigato gozaimasu. Right? Let's get along well. This is like uniquely Japanese. They say this when they're meeting somebody for the first time, and they're going to be like, they're going to continue seeing this person basically, whether it's at work or some functions, like yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Roughly translates into let's get along well, right? Okay, yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Hajimemashite, nice to meet you. Hajimemashite. In Spanish, we probably just say mucho gusto, right? That's one way of saying it. It's the easier, shorter way. That's fast, so that's good. Thank you very much. Domo arigato gozaimasu. Domo arigato gozaimasu. The gozaimasu makes it polite. The domo makes it very polite. Right? You can just say, most people just say arigato. Arigato. And very casually, you can just say domo. You're welcome. Do itashimashite. I haven't memorized that. Like, for some reason, it's just like I can't seem to memorize it. Do itashimashite. And excuse me, sumimasen. It's kind of like pardon me, excuse me, like I'm going to interrupt you, or excuse me for what, like if you're saying excuse me for what I did, you would say something like sumimasen deshita. Deshita. Deshita is like this already happened. I'm talking about the past. So, okay. So that's Japanese. And so like I have all of these down, like I can summon them anytime I want, just like you can summon buenos dias. And then I've had lesson 2, but I don't know this yet to the same degree that I know lesson 1. Kare wa dare desu ka? Who is he? Kanojo wa dare desu ka? Who is she? Kare wa watashi no tomachi desu. This is my friend, or he is my friend, I should say. Kanojo wa watashi no tomodachi desu. Yeah, I already forgot. I'm kind of just trying to show off here. Kare o shitemasu ka? Do you know him? Kareo. Kareo. So I know what helps me remember actually is having already studied the grammar. Like the reason it's karewa is because kare, which means he, is the topic. And so you're saying as for him, and then you're not saying he. There's no subject in this sentence. There's no written subject. It's understood that it's he. When the subject is not stated, when the subject is not stated, it's typically understood that it's the topic. And here the topic is introduced, is signaled by the word wa. So kare wa is as for him, and now I'm going to say something about him because he's the subject too. He is, who is he, right? Dare, who, and then is, and then so kanojo wa dare desu, right? Again, there's no subject there. There's no subject because it will be followed by the word ga. But we know that the topic is kanojo, which is she, so that I know the subject of sentence 19, the subject is she. And the subject of 17 is he, even though neither one of them has an actual subject written down, but it's understood. Okay. And the 18, kare wa watashi no tomodachi desu. Kare wa, again, is as for him, watashi is I. But when you stick no after it, it makes it possessive. So I becomes my. So there's no unique word my. It's just I possessive basically, and you signal the possessive with the particle no. So watashi no means mine. Tomodachi means friend, and then yeah, des is just kind of like the copula is. Okay, so got now 20 gare o. The o marks the direct object, so it's not as for him. It's not as for him. So there's no as for him. So the question that's being asked to you, so you you is the subject, right? If I say close the door, I'm saying you close the door, right? So you are the subject. It's unstated, but it's understood. This is the same thing. This is a question. It's being addressed to you, so you are the subject. And you, what's the verb? No. Shiteimasu. No, shiteimasu. You know who. You know, well, you know whom, right? What's the direct object of no? It's him. So that's why it's O, because O is marking the direct object, right? Do you know him? So that's the grammar. And that helps me. But just repeating these and me understanding the grammar, like I can help myself in understanding the sentence and remembering because the grammar helps me. But I'm not really learning the grammar to know the grammar. I'm learning it so that I can figure out the meaning of things and hopefully remember the meanings of things. Okay, so that is my Japanese. I've done lesson 1, I've done lesson 2, and yesterday, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I had lesson 3, but I am nowhere near like having memorized lesson 3. So I really, before my next lesson, which is in like 3 days, I need to make sure that I know like 90% of lesson 2, like instantly, like I'm fluent in it, and lesson 3. And that's just going to be a matter of repetition. Now that I know the correct pronunciation, right? Oshigoto wa nan desu ka? Oshigoto wa nan desu ka? What do you do for work, right? Oshigoto is work, right? As for work, oshigoto wa nan desu ka? Right? What is it? As for work, what is it? Right? Okay. What do you do? All right. So that's it. So that's my Romaji. And yeah, so Japanese, but I use Romaji. I'm not going to learn the hiragana katakana, no problem, but I'm not going to learn the kanji. So I'm like, if I'm not going to learn the kanji, why bother with the hiragana katakana? Yeah. So let's close current tab. Let's close this tab. Let's go to Kazakh. Kazakh, I am 1 lesson into Kazakh. Again, you can't see it yet, but you're going to see it in a second. I am 1 week into Kazakh, so I've had my first lesson, but so I haven't really quite memorized all the words yet. Here we go. And so you'll see here now that the Kazakh is in Cyrillic. I have not Romanized it. Cyrillic is not hard to learn. I'm still a slow reader. I'm still like not and my problem right now is the vowels. The vowels in Kazakh and kind of the stress in Kazakh, because I haven't heard it enough. I'm still not anywhere, like I'm not good yet. Hi is salim. 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 Right. Salim. Okay. Hello is salametis be. Salametis be. Salametis be. Good morning is Khair tang. Khair tang. Good afternoon is Khair kun. Good evening is Khair kiesh. Good night is Khair tun. Goodbye is koshbol. Bye also can be salbol, which I think is the more common one, salbol. See you later. I've never heard spoken. My tutor told me, but I forgot exactly how I'm supposed to pronounce it. But I can read. I can read the kes dies kienche. Kes dies kienche. Kes dies kienche. That's my best reading of Kazakh right now. How are you is Kalaisen. Kalaisen. I put how are you twice because it came from my Spanish, but ignore that. The 12. In the more polite way, you can say Kalingas Kalai. Kalingas Kalai. How are you? Kalingas Kalai. And then fine is Rachmiet. Sorry, Jaksa. Jaksa means fine or good. Jaksa. 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 My favorite Kazakh word. Jaksa. Rachmiet. Thank you. Rachmiet. Jaksa. Rachmiet. And then, and you, I haven't practiced this with Alcienche. al ciencia. And more polite, al cische. The cis usually marks the polite version, and the N ending usually marks the more informal ending. Okay, so that's, excuse me. That is, sumimasen. That is kaza. And so for my next lesson, it's roughly the same as, if you remember the Japanese one, he is my friend. Ol mening, ol mening dosum, ol mening dosum, ol mening dosum, ol mening dosum. That's my best. It's nice to meet you. That is a monster. I don't want to read it. I'll butcher it. What is your name? Atungus Kim. Atungus Kim. Atungus Kim. And then you would say something like, oh, actually, I'll get to it. It's down here, 22. Atungus Kim, and then you would respond with Mening Atum Carlos. Mening Atum Carlos. Mening Atum Carlos. Mening Atum Carlos. Okay. Where are you from? Kaidan Keldinis. Kaidan Keldinis. Kaldai Kendinis. Okay, something like that. Something close. So that's how I'm learning Kazakh. Same way I'm learning Japanese. And then finally, I've done the same thing, set 1 for Czech. Czech, thank goodness, uses the Latin alphabet. Like, if you can already read English or Spanish, learning these other alphabets is not a major obstacle. Okay, so ahoy, ahoy, Czech. To my Czech, any Czech viewers, ahoy, or dobrý den. Dobrý den is like more formal. Okay. Dobré ráno. Dobré ráno is good morning. Dobré odpoledne. Dobré odpoledne is good afternoon. Dobrý večer. Dobrý večer is good evening. Dobrou noc. Dobrou noc is good night. Naschledano. Naschledano. Naschledano is goodbye. Again, I haven't started studying Czech officially. I don't have a tutor in Czech. This is me writing out my list. This is me hearing the language on YouTube a little bit. But when it comes time, this is the list I'll start with, right? Ciao. They say also ciao, like in Italian, they say ciao. In Peru, we also say ciao. But in Peru, we only use ciao for goodbye. We don't use it for good morning. In some countries, they use both. Ciao is like aloha, is good morning and goodbye. But when I hear ciao, just because I've grew up in Peru and I've spoken Spanish all my life, like I don't want to hear ciao for hello. It bugs me. Anyway, so yeah, so see you later. Uvidíme se později. Uvidíme se později. How are you? Jak se máš? That's the informal. More formal. Jak se máte? Jak se máte? Fine, thank you. And here's the troublesome R with the little circumflex, like the one in Dvorak. Dobrze. Dobrze, dziękuję. Dziękuję. The little circumflex over the E makes it like a soft E, like a Y, like the Russian Y. Like just think of it, there's a Y in between the D and the E. So it would be like die, right? So dobrze. Dziękuję. Dziękuję. And you, a ty, and you formal, a vy. How about you? So ty. It's nice to meet you. Rad tie poznavam. And more formal, rad vas poznavam. Rad vas poznavam. Okay, and so this is how I go about learning Czech, and you'll see what is your name, slightly different words, right? But yeah, similar stuff. Okay, that's it. So that's the method. The video series is called Imminent Fluency, the Spanish edition. It just occurred to me that I can benefit Spanish speakers trying to learn English by doing the same thing. Imminent Fluency, which I don't even know how to say in Spanish now that I think about it. The English edition, right? And then that's all I will produce. Like I'm not qualified to produce any other kind of videos in these kind of videos. And yeah, And so I'm going to be my own guinea pig. I'm going to try out this method after like a month, maybe I'll give it a good 2 months. If after 2 months, if after like 8 lessons, let's say, if I don't have 90% of those of that vocabulary ingrained, learned, I can catch it, I can hear it, and then I have the response at the ready, just like buenos días, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias. If I don't have it like that, then the method is not working. As long as I've given the method its fair shot. Like I can't judge the method if I don't like, yeah, if you don't buy in and put in the work, like how can you judge the method, right? It's like the laziest students always give the teachers the worst comments, but like they don't put in the work. And like the best students leave the best comments because they get good grades and because they put in the work, and they're the only ones that can actually judge fairly whether the teacher is effective or not, or whether the method is effective or not, right? So, but human nature, we like to gripe, we like to complain, and we don't like to place blame on ourselves, so we place it on others. And then that's why I'm actually using this method for myself. That's why I'm going through it with Japanese and Kazakh, because I am honest with myself. I'm pretty damn honest with myself, and I will know, because the proof is in the pudding, whether I'm actually becoming conversational. If you try my method, if you try my series of videos, and after the fourth video, let's say, and you've been doing the work, you've been shadowing, you've been listening attentively, not just like it's in the background noise, and you reviewing every once in a while. So if you're giving the method a shot, and after a month you're not like 90% conversational in the stuff that we've covered, then stop using the method. You're kind of not maybe wasting your time, but like maybe there's more effective ways to use your time as far as learning the language. And so as I intend to use this method eventually for my Spanish students, I want to make sure that it works. At least works for me, and then maybe hopefully it'll work for them. I'm not saying whatever works for me will work for you, but at least I'll have something to like, there'll be reason for me to like promote this method, or to recommend this method, or to implement this method. Okay, so I am my own guinea pig when it comes to Japanese and Kazakh. And something I might even just drop Kazakh, not because I just, maybe it might be better if I just focus on Japanese. That might be a better test, because spreading myself too thin, like you might not be giving the method its, its due, its fair share, its fair try, let's say. All right, that's it. If you have comments, or if this sounds like a series you'd be interested in at least looking at and like trying, yeah, just let me know. And then later, and as you go through the videos for the first series, leave your comments as to like, Carlos, for the next set of expressions, can you include like my boss is an asshole? Can you include like my girlfriend is gaining weight? Can you include like I really need to exercise more? Like whatever common expressions you think you'd want to learn, right? And then I will cull from, hopefully there'll be enough to cull from. But anyway, and either way, as I learning Japanese and Kazakh, I'm also going to think of things that are like, oh, what I don't like. In the first set, I don't talk about colors. You're not learning red, yellow, black, green. You're not even learning numbers, like except for like your own age. Like learn to say how old you are. You're not. I didn't really talk about food, so I don't mention like chicken or salad or sandwich or pizza or steak or anything like that. I don't talk about body parts, so you don't learn the word for arm or legs or foot. And look, like if you open up any travel book, they usually have it categorized by themes, like food, travel stuff, hotel stuff, friends, plans, future, like things like that. Haven't done that, right? So I too have access to these books, and so I can pull from these books and see what kind of stuff like I'd want to use. Okay, that's it. I'm rambling now. So that's it, and yeah, that's it. Hasta luego. Matane, Nasledano, Salbol, Ciao, Aloha. I'm trying to find the button I need to find. That's why I'm talking. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Sorry. Okay. See ya.